Welcome back to American Sunrise. We appreciate you starting your week with us here. Federal immigration authorities say they have arrested 12 people in Minneapolis as part of a new enforcement operation. ICE officials say 6 of those arrested are Mexican nationals, 5 are Somali, and 1 is from El Salvador. The operation targeted individuals living in the United States without legal status, not entire communities. Here's what Borders Art Tom Homan had to say about the operation.
I've talked to several state and local officials who've said that the number of Somali immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally there is very, very small, and that this is about scaring people more than it is about arresting criminals. So what have you actually accomplished with this operation so far in Minnesota?
Well, we're just starting, and I disagree with the fact that people, even we don't know how many illegal Somalis there are, because remember, in the last 4 years in Joe Biden, there's over 2 million gotaways, known gotaways, people caught on video, drone traffic or essential traffic that crossed the border illegally and weren't apprehended, weren't vetted. And so, what President Trump's doing is fixing the last 4 years of the open border where millions of people are released in this country, many we don't know who they are. So we're going to do the same thing in the Twin Cities we've done across the nation. We're going to focus on those illegal alien public safety threats in these cities. And if they weren't a sanctuary city, many of these people would be apprehended in the safety and security of the county jail. But because you're a sanctuary city, we got to send more resources there to flood the zone, because it takes a whole team to find somebody in the community where it would take one agent to arrest one bad guy in a county jail. So this is exactly what President Trump promised American people were going to do, and that's what we're doing.
For more, let's bring in the Border Security Advisor for the Federation of American Immigration Reform, Art Del Cueto. Art, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So it seems to me that fundamentally here, what we just heard from Tom Homan is a great perspective in that he doesn't really know how many people are here illegally, which seems to give life to this idea that we need to be in these communities. We need to, first of all, be arresting those who are here illegally and who are posing a public threat, but also to assess how much of a threat there is in terms of these communities.
So one of the big points that he made that I'm so happy he made it, because I've been screaming about gotaways for such a long time. Okay. And just to give you an example, first and foremost, there was people from 168 different countries that entered the country during the Biden administration. And yeah, he's saying over 2 million gotaways. And he's right. We don't know how many gotaways actually came through under the Biden administration. I'm going to tell you why. There was groups that if they got away, you would register them as 20. That's all that would be registered, because you would call in the radio and say 20 plus, but all that would register would be 20. Now, I went after one of these 20 plus groups when I was out there in the field, and when I caught up to it, miles later, it was a group of 60. Now, if I would not have caught those 60 individuals, what would have gone down on paper is 20 gotaways. So that ought to give you some kind of idea. When you're hearing 2 million gotaways under the Biden administration, I honestly don't think that's even a number that's close to what really got away under those 4 years.
Art, an illegal alien was charged with attempted first-degree murder and several other offenses, actually, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Officials said 33-year-old Oscar Solorzano stabbed a man on the light rail train. The victim is now in stable condition, thank goodness. Solorzano was twice removed from our country and is a native of Honduras. And this comes just months after a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, we all remember, was murdered on the Blue Line in Charlotte. Art, should the National Guard be sent into North Carolina? Are we really in a place where the South is in this sort of consistent peril?
Absolutely. I've driven and I've gone to North Carolina many times. It's a place that I really enjoy going out there many times during the summertime, during the wintertime. I have connections to North Carolina, and I have seen how bad it has gotten in North Carolina. I have good contact with a lot of the sheriff departments out there. I've spoken to them directly. They have a big problem with fentanyl and with heroin that has entered into their state, and a lot of it is drugs that have come in through our southern border. The more the merrier. Look, we need to make sure that we have as many law enforcement in a lot of these areas to secure our country as we possibly can. And one thing that I love to add is the border is more secure. Everyone talks about it. Well, if the border is secure, why do we need this? The border is more secure than it ever has been, despite all the obstacles that have been thrown in front of this administration. but there's still more work to be done because the last administration really, truly made a mess out of the border.
Hey, Art, how do you get the Gotaways? How does that work exactly? And a lot of these folks that are here illegally, the majority of them overstay their visa, actually. So how do you go about tracking that down and making sure you get to the bottom of it?
Look, unfortunately, finding these gotaways has just turned into you got to be lucky in the right place. So when you start going into the communities where you are aware that they've been more vocal or they've allowed more individuals without legal status in the U.S., that's how you start finding some of these gotaways. But look, that question that you just asked is to me the $1 million question. That is what makes this so much more difficult. How do you find the gotaways? It's the luck of the draw. That's why it's ridiculous when I hear protesters or Congress people or different individuals that go and try to attack law enforcement and they tell them to stop. How do you know what criminal record those individuals that are being detained have? Not just in the United States, but what criminal record did they have in their own country?
And beyond that, I think to your point, Art, it also highlights the fact that there are probably very nefarious people here who are posing not just public threats, but a threat to national security. And we have no idea who they are or where they are.
I spoke to many agents, including ICE agents. I still have very good connections with them. When they would arrest individuals and they'd say it was a group of 50 and one popped up with a red flag because he had ties to some kind of terrorist organization, he was detained for further questioning. FBI handled it. You'd have to ask the FBI what they did with that individual. But the other individuals in the group, even though they traveled together, they came from the same town, city, or village, they were treated just like any other asylum seeker, and that is dangerous.
Art Del Cueto will have to leave the conversation there. Unfortunately, the issue remains. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good week.
Always a pleasure. You as well. Coming up, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. At least if it's not in my neighborhood. Of course, that means it is time to shovel, which I hate. I think that's well documented. Winter storms are bringing back backbreaking work, for shoveling. But at what age should you hand the shovel over to someone that's much younger, like your kids? We'll talk about it next here on American Sunrise.